Because he made fun of Girl Scouts, he was dismissed from Men's Health, dismissed from Stuff magazine for using dwarves to disrupt a business meeting. Following a sharp decline in circulation under his direction, his contract at Maxim UK expired without being renewed. Greg Gutfeld had been fired from every major publication he had ever led by 2006. He was dismissed as unemployed by the media establishment. Then Fox News called with an odd offer to host a show at 3:00 a.m., a time slot so empty that executives joked his only viewers would be nursing moms and speed dealers. Nobody anticipated his 3-month stay. Today, that same reject attracts more views than Kimmel, Fallon, and Colbert put together. Despite never appearing on late-night television, he rose to the position of unchallenged late-night monarch. However, it took more than luck to get from serial failure to television domination. Building a cult following among insomniacs, meeting a Russian model in Portugal, getting fired again, and rewriting the rules of American talk shows were all part of it. We must go back to the beginning of the pattern of destruction in order to comprehend how a man who was unable to maintain employment for more than 2 years became the most watched figure during his time slot. On September 12, 1964, Gregory John Gutfeld was born in San Mateo, California. Jackie, his mother, brought up the kids in a Catholic home. Young Greg went to Junipero's Serra High School, a Catholic all-boys school that also produced baseball great Barry Bonds and NFL quarterback Tom Brady. In the middle of the 1980s, he enrolled in the University of California, Berkeley. This decision would have unanticipated consequences for a future conservative media star. He was not converted by Berkeley's liberal atmosphere. He was repulsed by it. Later on, he would clarify that his exposure to liberals made him conservative, while his exposure to conservatives made him libertarian. He saw that the worst aspects of both groups had one thing in common. They were moralizing and teaching others how to live. He had no desire to participate in the purity tests of any trib. Following his English degree graduation in 1987, Gutfeld secured an internship at the American Spectator, where he performed errands for the publication's infamously challenging editor, R. Tyrrell, EMTT. He gained insight into the inner workings of conservative media from the experience. However, magazines didn't pay well, so Gutfeld started reading men's lifestyle magazines. He began his career as a staff writer at Prevention Magazine, a health-focused magazine, when he started using drugs and alcohol at what his coworkers called a prodigious rate. He would spend years living a party lifestyle. He finally made it to Men's Health, the go-to source for abs and fitness advice that ruled newsstands in the 1990s. Gutfeld became editor-in-chief in 1999. At 35, he was in charge of one of America's most prosperous men's magazines. Then he lost his job. Depending on who told the story, different official explanations were given. Gutfeld had written articles making fun of his own boss, cat lovers, and Girl Scouts. The parent corporation of the magazine determined he was not worth the hassle. His career trajectory was described as both amazing and dismal by one media outlet. He repeatedly climbed to the top of the ladder and then fell all the way back down again. But failure did not teach Gutfeld to be cautious. he intensified his turmoil. His next destination was Stuff Magazine, a magazine devoted to women, technology, and all the things that young men were supposed to be interested in. Gutfeld increased readership from 750,000 to 1.2 million, turning it from a mediocre title into a circulation powerhouse. By pushing boundaries that marketers accepted since the statistics continued to rise, he completely unhinged it. Then, the event that would define his career in magazines occurred. What gives a magazine buzz was the title of a conference hosted by the American Society of Magazine Editors in April 2003. Gutfeld chose to take that question literally. Using a casting agency, he recruited 3 short actors and instructed them to cause as much disruption as possible during the meeting. They loudly chewed their potato chips. They let their phones to ring over and over. While industry executives attempted to talk, they engaged in boisterous chats. They were expelled by security. The New York Times published the story. Gutfeld was dismissed right away. That's where most careers would have ended. He certainly appeared to. He would now be untouchable by any big American media. He had gained notoriety for the wrong reasons. For Greg Gutfeld, however, being dismissed from America was insufficient. He made the decision to banish himself to a completely different continent. Gutfeld had a new beginning in London in 2004. It appears that no one in the UK was aware of the dwarf event, and the British edition of Maxim lacked an editor-in-chief. Or maybe they had, and didn't give a damn. In any case, Gutfeld prepared his belongings and traveled across the Atlantic. He had to travel to Portugal for a company conference during his first week of employment. The publisher brought together editors from all across the world to debate strategy, and Maxim had editions in more than 30 countries. After checking into his hotel room, Gutfeld started getting comfortable. Then he saw the woman in the room next door. Tall and dark-haired, Elena Musa was employed by Maxim Russia as a picture editor. She began her career as a runway model before switching to magazine work. She instantly attracted Gutfeld's notice at the conference in Portugal. Later on, he would characterize the experience as instant recognition. He just knew it when he glanced at her. "That's my wife." Elena didn't want anything to do with him, which was the issue. Gutfeld pursued her for 3 days with what he acknowledged was stupid tenacity. The short American editor continued to show up everywhere she went, but she remained aloof, contemptuous, and disinterested in him. At last, he asked her out on a date. "Yes," she replied. Between them, something changed. Elena moved from Russia to London to be with him in a matter of weeks. From an outside perspective, the relationship accelerated at a rate that would have appeared reckless. They were married in a modest civil ceremony in New York after only 5 months of dating. There weren't many wedding pictures. They both favored seclusion over media attention. In his 2008 book, Gutfeld talked about Elena and how she encouraged him to see London in its fullest form rather than hiding in their apartment and watching reality TV. She provided him with stability that he had never experienced in bars or magazine offices. But his career wouldn't be saved by steadiness. The outcomes of Gutfeld's time at Maxim UK were unsatisfactory. Under his direction, circulation decreased. The business decided not to extend his contract when it ended in 2006. He had recently been married, was 41 years old, unemployed once more, and had no clear future. The couple moved to New York City. Elena started establishing her own fashion styling career and eventually worked for magazines such as Design Scene, L'Officiel, and Venice Magazine. In 2017, she received her degree from Parsons School of Design. However, both Gutfelds were beginning anew in 2006. Greg accepted an odd job that appeared to be a career suicide. He started writing blogs for the Huffington Post. The Huffington Post embodied every aspect of leftist journalism that Gutfeld detested. However, Gutfeld saw a chance to stir up problems from within as creator Arianna Huffington welcomed conservative views on her platform. His post gained notoriety due to what some described as inspired lunatic ridicule of other bloggers. He made fun of Arianna. He criticized other contributors. Every comment area became a fight because of him. Andy Levy, a fellow blogger, noticed one of those comment sections. After exchanging jabs, the two found they had similar sensibilities: sardonic, dark, and ready to insult anyone for a good joke. That online sparring would eventually develop into something more important. Because someone at Fox News was observing when Gutfeld was irritating leftists online. Late in 2006, the call came in. Fox News intended to start a late-night program. Did Gutfeld show any interest? He answered right away and candidly. He had no money. He was willing to do anything. Fox took him to meetings in New York. It was an odd pitch. The network sought to fill a void in viewership. The show was originally slated to air at 2:00 a.m., when the majority of Americans were asleep. Gutfeld joked that the intended demographic included prisoners, nursing moms, and speed dealers. They received numerous letters from prisoners. Under the name Rehta, the program debuted on February 5, 2007. Gutfeld anticipated meticulous planning and weeks of rehearsals. Executives informed him instead that they would begin in 3 days. In the green room, the squad practiced. Everyone was drinking, even the cameramen. It was less like a television show and more like a house party. Rehta made its appearance around 2:00 a.m. After viewing the initial episodes, Fox executives concluded that the subject was too edgy for the time slot. They decided to postpone it till 3 in the morning, where fewer people would notice it and voice their complaints. Before his own show could find a viewer, Gutfeld had already been demoted inside it. However, during those quiet hours of the night, something unexpected occurred. Rehta gained a cult following. The format of the broadcast broke all the rules of cable news. Panelists would be introduced by Gutfeld with ridiculously flattering remarks. They talked on anything from pop culture to politics to outright absurdity. There was nothing sacred. There was nothing sacred. Fox News itself was frequently ridiculed. The humor was dark, bizarre, and unlike anything else on TV. As the show's ombudsman, Andy Levy, Gutfeld's Huffington Post sparring companion, joined. Bill Schultz, a co-worker from the days of Gutfeld's Stuff magazine, was appointed as the official sidekick. Levy was the deadpan snark machine, and the three developed an odd chemistry. Schultz portrayed the endearing loser. Like a cunning ringmaster, Gutfeld oversaw the mayhem. Jackie, Gutfeld's mother, started to appear frequently on Red Eye. After explaining that the joke was that she was old, he offered her the title of senior correspondent. During the day, she was responsible for watching Fox News and reporting on events. She was always complaining that the women on screen were wearing too short skirts. Gutfeld would reply that those skirts were well liked by other spectators. The mother-son bond felt authentic, as it was depicted on camera. Introducing friends to his parents had caused Gutfeld embarrassment when he was younger. As an adult, he realized that those same buddies would rather hang out with Jackie than with him. Audiences reacted favorably to her straightforward genuineness. She encouraged her son in all of his endeavors, even when they were doomed to fail. Red Eye shouldn't have been effective. A performance at 3 in the morning. Topics picked seemingly at random, inebriated cameramen, and a lack of funding had no business drawing viewers. Still, the ratings increased. Despite running in the middle of the night, the show started to outperform prime-time cable news programs. Fox then gave Gutfeld a greater offer in July 2011, a brand-new daytime program called The 5 Needed Hosts. Every weekday at 5:00 p.m., 5 pundits discussed politics and news. Among those 5 would be Gutfeld. The 5 became well known as the first non-prime show to top both overall viewership and the important demographic of adults aged 25 to 54. The program created television history. Suddenly, instead of just thousands of people, Gutfeld was in front of millions. However, he continued to host Red Eye 2 and worked both shows concurrently for almost 4 more years. The grind couldn't go on forever. Gutfeld announced his departure from Red Eye in February 2015 in order to concentrate on a new endeavor. 3:00 a.m. The show had fulfilled its mission. Greg Gutfeld's ability to captivate an audience even when no one was paying attention had been demonstrated. Fox now wanted to use a real-time slot to see what he could do. On May 31, 2015, The Greg Gutfeld Show debuted as a weekly Saturday night show at 1:00 p.m. The format combined elements of a variety show with political satire. Gutfeld gave one-off speeches. He spoke with journalists. Among the regular panelists were professional wrestler Tyrus, whose menacing demeanor contrasted with surprisingly perceptive analysis, and comedian Cat Tim, who contributed a libertarian viewpoint and a keen sense of humor. Gutfeld continued to appear on The 5 every day, as the show ran on weekends for 6 years. He worked non-stop to cultivate a following of devoted viewers who continued to watch his shows. Broadcast networks' late-night hosts seldom acknowledged him. A Saturday Fox News broadcast was not seen as competition by them. Then 2021 arrived. Fox News declared that The Greg Gutfeld Show would switch to weeknights and change its name to simply Gutfeld. At 11 p.m., the new show would air Eastern in direct competition with Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and Stephen Colbert. Failure was anticipated by industry observers. How might a news program on a cable network rival that on a broadcast network? How could a conservative comic draw in viewers who had spent more than 20 years favoring Jon Stewart and his successors? The response came promptly. Gutfeld surpassed The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in the ratings. By August 2021, over 2 million people watched the show every night on average, more than any rival on cable or broadcast. The man who began work at 3 in the morning presently controlled 11 p.m. The king was now the rejected one. The figures continued to rise. The combined audience for Gutfeld and The Five was over 5 million people on average by the end of 2021. Gutfeld drew 2.5 million viewers in a single night in October 2022, making it its highest-rated episode to yet. Those figures could not be met by any late-night program. Fox relocated Gutfeld to 1000 p.m. in June 2023, Eastern. As a result of the change, the show was officially removed from the late-night competition. Critics claimed that a 1000 p.m. constituted cheating. Programs that air should not be compared to the show. The terms didn't matter to Gutfeld. The audience continued to expand because he cared about them. The popularity of the program was a reflection of more general shifts in American media consumption, with hosts portraying conservative viewers as the adversary. Traditional late-night programming has become more politicized. Gutfeld provided a substitute. He made fun of both parties when they earned it, but the most of the criticism was directed at Democrats. More significantly, compared to polished broadcast productions, his show felt genuine. He was previously dubbed the most dangerous man on TV by the Weekly Standard. In contrast to other media figures, Gutfeld's work was truly subversive. It was a stink bomb dropped into every American movie theater, nonprofit boardroom, faculty lounge, and mainstream newsroom. He had found his audience by being precisely who he was, a troublemaker who was dismissed from every respectable job he had before landing somewhere that valued chaos rather than by following trends. No one, not even Gutfeld, could have guessed how the later parts of his story would turn out. He revealed something that startled devoted viewers in December 2024. Greg Gutfeld became a father for the first time at the age of 60. Mira, a daughter, was born to him and Elena. Gutfeld made the news during an episode of The Five, in which he made light of his daughter's remarkable lung capacity and his intentions to teach her 3 languages. After 20 years of marriage, there were no children. Gutfeld became a first-time parent at a time when most men his age were considering grandchildren. Suddenly, the private man, who hardly ever talked about his wife on camera, had a whole new side to his life. His continuous domination in his career coincided with the announcement of the baby. In its competitive set, Gutfeld continued to be the most watched program by 2025. He often surpassed 3 million viewers, while his closest competitors failed to achieve 2 million. Someone the industry had written off as unfit for television had changed the late-night scene. Part of the story is revealed by the contrast with his rivals. The production of broadcast late-night shows is said to cost about $100 million a year. Gutfeld used a small portion of the resources to operate. His program never attempted to equal Colbert's or Fallon's production levels, instead embracing its more modest beginnings. His failed philosophy had turned out to be prophetic. He maintained that getting fired was the finest thing that could happen to a person. Many believe that losing their job signals the end of their career. You always wind up somewhere better in reality. He had repeatedly lived by that concept, using each termination as a springboard rather than a dead end. It was only after the fact that the pattern became evident. With each dismissal, Gutfeld moved closer to a setting that would allow his unique skills to flourish. Men's health desired conformity. Stuff want to be sane. Maxim UK desired an increase in circulation. They all didn't want a provocateur who used dwarves to interrupt business gatherings. Fox News, in particular the 3 a.m. Gutfeld, was finally able to be himself during a time period that no one cared about. Throughout his ascent, Elena was mostly unseen. She kept up her fashion career, making sporadic appearances on his Instagram, but staying away from his TV shows. She avoided the spotlight, which is precisely why their love endured. Gutfeld utilized his connections at Fox News to assist with the evacuation of Elena's mother from Lviv to Poland during Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. He publicly published the reunion video, one of the few occasions when his personal and professional worlds came together. When Gutfeld was sitting broke at a Chelsea pub in 2006, he was at the peak of his career, and in a position no one could have imagined. The man who made the joke that his first audience was made up of tired parents and criminals had created something strong from that base. In addition to Fox supporters, a growing number of independents and even Democrats who thought the broadcast options were boring were among his audience. One conclusion can be drawn from the numbers. Over 3 million people watch each night, and over 5 million watch both shows together. Supremacy of the ratings, which compelled CBS to consider whether The Late Show could go on. However, the figures don't explain why it was successful. That pattern of failure and reinvention holds the key to the solution. Gutfeld never made an effort to fit in with the industry's expectations. Because he was challenging, pushed boundaries, and refused to control his inclinations, he was fired. He eventually discovered a position where those same attributes were assets rather than problems. Greg Gutfeld demonstrated that occasionally the 3:00 a.m. reject emerges as the unchallenged monarch, finding an audience that desired exactly what he had been providing all along rather than altering who he was.